Bonjour à toutes et à tous et merci de nous joindre dans la salle de presse virtuelle de la Commission européenne et merci également de nous suivre en direct sur Europe by Satellite. Nous sommes les jeudis 6 mai. J'ai quelques annonces à faire avant de passer à vos éventuelles questions. D'abord, j'aimerais vous rappeler que la présidente von der Leyen participera demain au sommet social de Porto, organisé par la présidence portugaise du Conseil. Les vice-présidents exécutifs Vestager et Dombrovskis, le haut représentant Borrell et les commissaires Gabriel, Nicolas Schmit et Elisa Ferreira participeront également à ce sommet. Je vous invite à suivre la session d'ouverture et la session des clôtures de ce sommet en direct sur IBS demain. Donc, la présidente participera également à la conférence de presse conjointe avec les présidents Sassoli et Michel et le Premier ministre Costa, qui est prévu demain soir et que vous allez aussi pouvoir suivre en direct sur Europe by Satellite. Il y a plus d'informations au sujet des réunions de Porto dans notre Daily News. And now let me give the floor to Johannes, who has an announcement on an important milestone in relation to our support to researchers.
Thank you very much, Dana, and good afternoon. Yes, today we are glad to share with you an important achievement in research and innovation in Europe. We reached the 10,000th grantee of the European Research Council. To celebrate the success, the European Research Council organized an online event where President Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Parliament David Sassoli, and Commissioner Gabriel, together with other European leaders, expressed a strong support for frontier research. The researcher number 10,000, in case you are interested, is Professor Inga Børre from the University of Bergen in Norway, who has received the grant to advance the pioneering research in geothermal energy and contribute to the path towards clean and sustainable energy for future generations. Congratulations to Professor Børre, but also to all other 10,000 ERC grantees, and as always, you have more information in the Daily News. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Johannes. Et pour passer au français, finalement, permettez-moi de vous rappeler que le haut représentant Borrell préside aujourd'hui un conseil affaires étrangères défense. De l'autre côté de la rue, donc au Conseil, les ministres passeront en vue un certain nombre d'événements récents et à venir, y compris sur les Sahel, l'Ukraine et le Mozambique. Ils auront également un échange de vues sur ce que nous appelons la boussole stratégique et en mettant l'accent sur la gestion de crise. Ils auront ensuite un déjeuner de travail informel avec le secrétaire général de l'OTAN. Une conférence de presse avec les hauts représentants aura lieu suite à ces conseils vers 15 heures. And let me also remind you that we will try to keep this midday briefing relatively short, since Commissioner Kyriakides is coming to the press room at about approximately 12:30 to talk to you about our therapeutic strategy on COVID-19, which the college approved today. And with this, I'm ready for your questions. So please, like always, keep your hand up if you have questions for us today. And I see indeed that there is a question from Tom for us. Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon. The French government has threatened to cut electricity deliveries to Jersey. Is the Commission informed about this? Is there any who actually could, in this dispute about fish, I think, actually take measures? Actually, is it the question of France, or would the Commission have to take any restrictions or measures to implement the treaty?
Thank you very much, Tom. So first of all, before giving the floor to the two colleagues who will have something to say about this subject, I would say that, of course, we follow the situation and obviously we call for restraint and for calm and for discussing the issue at stake between the two stakeholders calmly. I will now give the floor to Vivian to present the situation with regards to fish. Vivian, are you there?
Thank you. Yes, good afternoon. Here I am. Thanks a lot for the question. So indeed, the situation where we are in is that on the 30th of April, the Commission was notified by the UK authorities of granting 41 licenses to the EU vessels who are fishing in Jersey territorial waters from the 1st of May. But there were additional conditions set to these licenses. We have, following the receiving of this, indicated to the UK that we see that the provisions of the EU-UK trade and cooperation agreement that we recently agreed have not been met there, have not been respected. And we also, and why do we say that? It's because that according to the agreement, any new specific conditions to the fishing authorizations that limit the EU fishing activities in the UK waters need to comply with the objectives and principles set out in our TCA, the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, but also have to be based on clear scientific rationale. And those conditions have to be non-discriminatory between the UK and the EU vessels. Also, what is an important point there is that these conditions have to be notified in advance to the other party so that there is sufficient time to assess and to react to the proposed measures. And based on that, we have indicated that until we have received further justifications from the UK authorities, we consider that these new conditions should not apply. Now, as Dana said, we are continuing our discussions with the UK. We call for calm in this situation, and we are doing what is foreseen in the agreement, as well as keeping in mind, of course, the best interests of our fishing community. And for us, just to underline again, but this comes as no surprise, the full compliance with the TCA is essential in this process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vivian. I will now invite you to keep your hands up if you have additional questions for Vivian on this subject. So I understand that Joe has a question on this. Joe, go ahead.
It may be, it's on the same subject, but it may be better for Dan. So I don't know if you want me to stand down for a minute or two, or shall I go ahead?
I would prefer you to wait a bit, because I have Vivian now on the line, and perhaps there are additional questions for Vivian, follow-ups on what she just explained as being the process. So please keep your hand up if you have additional questions for Vivian at this stage on this question. I understand that Simona has a question for Vivian on this. Is that so, Simona? Then go ahead. No microphone source for Simona, so we cannot take you at this stage. Yes, we get her.
Do you hear me?
Yes, now we hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, actually, I have a Simona Grmek, Slovenian press agency. I'm not sure if it's a question for Vivian. I have a question regarding, rule of law.
Well, then I interrupt you, Simona. Apologies. It's definitely not for Vivian, and I will then invite you to wait a little bit. We will come back to you, and I invite other colleagues to raise their hand if they have additional questions on the fish aspect of the matter that Vivian was talking about. I don't see any other questions, so then I will give the floor to Joe to ask his question, which pertains more to Dan.
Thank you, Dana. So this is it's a question of whether the French suggestion that they could cut off electricity is deemed a proportionate kind of lever under the TCA. Because I know Mr. Barnier spoke about it in his book, that is one mechanism the EU has at its disposal to ensure that it has future fishing rights after 2026. I just want to know if cutting Jersey's electrical powers, which is, I believe, 96% comes from France, is that a fair and proportionate way to counter 41 boats not being given sufficient access to waters off Jersey? Thank you.
Joe, Dan?
Hi, Joe. Thanks very much for your question. I mean, first of all, look, I think Vivian has set out very, very clearly what our position in this issue is. We're engaging in good faith with the UK to try and solve the situation, and we're calling for calm while we do this. It'll come as no surprise to you that I have no comment to make on individual comments that have been made over the past couple of days. What I can do is set out in clear terms what our dispute settlement mechanism is under the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, which I presume you know off by heart by now. All of this information is available on our website, in our Q&As, and all of the slides that we have published. Very, very briefly, you know that the TCA has this robust mechanism, this robust dispute settlement mechanism to resolve disputes. What is the first stage in this? The first stage is that you engage constructively, in good faith, with the other side to try and resolve the dispute. So that's where we are right now. I'm not going to comment on hypothetical situations after that. I think you know, though, I mean, just on a factual basis, that if disagreements persist, according to the TCA, the complaining party can then request the establishment of an independent arbitration tribunal. And then, if compliance with the ruling of the arbitration tribunal is not respected, well, then the complaining party can indeed suspend its own obligations in a proportionate way until the other party eventually complies with the ruling. And these cross-suspension mechanisms are an essential tool to ensure that both parties fully respect their commitments under the TCA. That's all that I would have to say on this specific point at this exact moment in time, but otherwise we are engaging in good faith with the UK, as Vivian said.
Thank you very much. I understand that Joe has a follow-up question. Joe, go ahead.
So would energy against fish be a fair and proportionate cross kind of retaliation in this suggestion? So I know Clement Beaune has also suggested that fish for finance is another kind of lever that could be used. So I just want to know, are these kind of not allowed, but do you deem them kind of fair cross retaliations? Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. You will understand that Dan will not comment on the comments that you just brought to the fore, but I will give him the floor once more to see if he has anything to add to what he said about the description of the process through which any such measures could be introduced.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Dana. You are right. Joe, you started your question with would. That's the same as if. We don't answer if questions or hypothetical scenarios. As I said, we're engaging in good faith with the UK right now. You know yourself how the cross-suspension mechanisms work under the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. That includes, of course, the suspension of obligations across all economic areas. I can point you to the various different parts in the TCA that set that out. But look, I'm not going to go down a hypothetical route at this moment in time.
Dan, there are additional questions on this topic. I see Jakob. Jakob, are you there?
Sorry, my question is not about fisheries.
Good. So then I will give the floor to Tom, who has probably a follow-up question to his initial one. Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Is there any possibility that the French would engage in sanctions or measures against the Jersey or the British without litigation, before litigation has taken place? And actually, who has the competence to ask for litigation? Is it the French? Or would the French have to go to the Commission and the Commission would have to engage in this litigation procedure?
Thank you so much. I will give the floor to Dan once more to try to answer the second part of your question, because the first part of your question about is there any possibility of something strikes me as being extremely hypothetical, and we would not be able to engage with that one. But on the procedure and who could do what, Dan, once more.
Yeah, apologies, Tom. I meant to answer that question as well. No, what we're talking about here is in the context of the TCA, which is an EU-UK agreement, right? So in the event of a dispute, the EU and the UK consult each other in good faith. If there is further disagreements, well, then we go through the dispute settlement mechanism that's set out in the TCA, which, if you like, is at EU level, okay? And this is done within the joint bodies that can be established at EU-UK level and not between member states.
Thank you very much, Dan. I see two more hands on this topic. Jack first.
Hi there, Jack Parrock, Euronews. So my question is about this obviously as well. I know that you're saying that it's hypothetical, but the threat is kind of real. The French ministers are threatening to cut off the electricity, essentially. So my question is whether the Commission deems that a measure that's sort of in line with values and the rights of the people living in Jersey, and whether that's a way that the European Commission would see trade deals being organized and arranged in this sort of threatening way, or whether you think that even if it is hypothetical, whether it's something that you would deem as not really on.
Thank you very much for your question, Jack. I think it was amply answered by the previous answers from Dan. I can give him the floor once more to see if there is anything to add to what he just said. But very clearly from the answers of Vivian and of Dan, we believe in dialogue, and we have a process through which disputes are resolved under the TCA. Dan explained it at length, and this is where the matter is likely to be discussed. Dan, anything that you would add to this?
No, Dana, I wouldn't have anything else to add. I mean, Jack, you are right. There is an issue here, and that is to do with the licensing for EU fishermen. Vivian has set out our position on that. What are we doing about it? We are now engaging in good faith with the UK to try and solve the situation. That's the point that we're at right now, and I don't think it would be right for me or for us to say anything else beyond that point right now.
As we can go today, but Bruno, go ahead.
The Commission seems to be saying that the licensing requirements from Jersey are different than the disputed licensing arrangements in the dispute for Boulogne. They're saying the Jersey ones are a breach of the TCA. Therefore, it is a matter for the dispute, potentially a matter for the dispute settlement in the TCA, which means it's no longer an issue for Jersey, it's an issue for the British government and the EU. Is that correct? Is there a difference between these two disputes? That's quite an important matter of fact. Could you clarify that, please?
I feel that it's more for Vivian, perhaps, to clarify on the specific issue of licensing. Vivian, is that so?
Indeed, I think what I can say on that there is that why we see that it is for the why it is something that we discuss with the UK government is that it was last Friday that we received this letter from the UK Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, which set those new conditions. So this is why we've answered to the letter, and we are now engaging fully in constructive discussions to see that we could find a solution to this, to make sure that these these additional conditions, either we get more explanations on why they are there, to show that they are in line with the TCA and with the scientific rationale which is included in there, or we see changes in there. But so this is the understanding from our side, or this is the reasoning why our counterpart in these discussions is indeed the UK government. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. I understand that Bruno has a follow-up question, so Bruno, go ahead. Do we have Bruno?
Requirements that were notified to you, disputed ones that were notified to you last week without consultation and all the rest of it, do they apply to all fishing licenses across the board, or do they only apply to the fishing licenses for the Channel Islands, which as Crown dependencies set many of their own policies independently from London? Thanks.
Vivian, anything to add to this?
I'm afraid I missed the beginning of the question. I had some little difficulties here, but
indeed, same
if
here.
you'd want
So
to
may I
start again.
take this opportunity to invite Bruno to repeat it and to advise him to wait a few seconds before actually speaking, so that we can get the beginning of your question. Bruno.
How's that?
That's good. Go ahead.
Good. Yes, it was just to clarify whether these changes to the licensing rules apply across the board to all fishing licenses in British waters, or whether they only relate to the waters around Jersey or the Channel Islands, because as Crown dependencies, they've been used to setting their own policies on fishing action.
Thank you. Vivian, do we have an answer to this?
Thank you. Yes, from what I understand, these are the specific conditions that we received last Friday. Those concern the licensing. Those are the additional conditions which have been set on the licensing for fishing in Jersey. Thank you. In Jersey waters.
Thank you. Quentin, is your question also about this matter?
It is.
So go ahead.
C'est une question pour Dan et je vais la faire en français puisque Jersey-Guernesey c'est quand même plus proche, c'est quand même assez proche de la France. Dans le TCA, il y a quand même un groupe d'experts, il y a quand même un comité spécialisé sur la pêche. Est-ce que la DGMAR a déjà nommé ses responsables pour gérer ces...
Nous avons perdu Quentin. Le son a été coupé. Si nous n'arrivons pas à le récupérer,
c'est bon,
il est de voilà. Quentin,
c'est bon là, vous m'entendez?
tu étais interrompu. Vas-y, essaie de poser ta question encore une fois.
Excuse-moi, alors, je vais refaire. Donc la première, c'est est-ce que la DGMAR a déjà nommé ses experts pour le comité spécialisé sur la pêche? Et ce serait possible de savoir qui c'est. Et de deux, c'est comment on peut réussir déjà à lancer les mesures de rééquilibrage si la gouvernance de l'accord et les panels d'arbitrage ne sont toujours pas encore nommés.
Thank you. Dan, do you have any updates on those appointments?
Bonjour Quentin. Comme tu sais bien, l'établissement de tous ces comités spécialisés sont en cours. Et pour l'instant, je sais que les co-chairs des comités spécialisés sont en train d'être nommés. À ce stade, je ne peux pas confirmer les noms de ces personnes, mais je vais voir avec les DG et je reviens vers toi. Sur le Dispute Settlement Mechanism, oui, c'est toujours possible de lancer les processus, mais comme j'ai dit, nous sommes au stade où on essaie de trouver une solution avec le Royaume-Uni. On est en train d'engager avec bonne foi pour arriver à une solution.
Merci Dan. Je vais prendre encore deux dernières questions à ce sujet en espérant qu'elles sont courtes parce qu'on pourrait passer à d'autres sujets. Il y a des collègues qui m'ont signalé qu'ils ont d'autres sujets sur lesquels ils aimeraient nous poser des questions. Nick.
Thanks, Dana. Yeah, I'll make it very brief. It's just on the contacts between the UK and the EU. Could we get any impression of what sort of level they're at? Is Commissioner Šefčovič going to talk to Lord Frost? Any plans for that? And also, have you been in contact with the French government as well on this? Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's a difficult question, I believe, to answer at this specific point in time. I'll give the floor rapidly to Vivian to see if she has any updates on this. But like always, the contacts take place at all necessary levels between operational and political. Vivian, anything more detailed to provide today?
Thank you. Indeed. I mean, we are in contact with the UK authorities. We are in contact with the French authorities very regularly. What I can tell you is that the correspondence I was referring to, that from our side came from the Director General of DG Mare. We've also had Commissioner Sienkiewicz, who's held a virtual meeting with the Jersey Senator upon his request. So, but these contacts, those are from the beginning of the week, but that's something which is ongoing, and I can assure you a lot of work being put into this process for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. Maintenant, Virginie, une question aussi à ce sujet, je comprends.
Oui, bonjour. Je ne suis pas certaine d'avoir tout bien compris. J'ai compris que le mécanisme de règlement des différends se faisait entre l'Union européenne et le Royaume-Uni, puisque c'est les deux signataires de l'accord. Ceci dit, là, on a des initiatives britanniques contre la France et des réponses de la France. Et ça me semble évident, mais je voudrais juste être sûre que je n'ai pas tort. La France ne rompt rien dans le TCA en elle-même engageant ces mesures de rétorsion. Je veux dire, c'est pas illégal, entre guillemets, ce que fait la France. J'imagine qu'elle est en droit de dire les Brites me cassent les pieds, je fais ci, je fais ça. On peut considérer que c'est pas une bonne idée, qu'importe. Mais en tout cas, d'un point de vue purement procédurier, il n'y a pas de souci. Ou il y en a un.
Virginie, le son était de mauvaise qualité, je dois dire. J'espère que Dan a pu capter l'essence de ta question et pouvoir donner une réponse très rapidement, faute de quoi je lui dirais de se mettre en contact bilatéralement avec toi. Dan, anything to add to conclude on this point?
Pas de souci, Virginie, je t'ai compris comme toujours. Non, ce que je peux dire, c'est qu'il y a un processus dans l'accord de coopération qui est le procédure de règlement des différends. Ça s'est fait dans les organisations, les comités, les conseils qui sont conjoints avec le Royaume-Uni. Nous actons dans l'accord au niveau européen s'il y a un problème. Mais bien sûr, la France fait partie de l'Union européenne, donc il n'y a pas de problème à ce côté-là. Mais voilà, la procédure, c'est au niveau européen.
Dan, ça clarifie la chose pour aujourd'hui, je pense. Maintenant, on va passer à d'autres sujets. Il y avait au moins 2 collègues qui m'avaient signalé leur intérêt pour d'autres sujets, donc je donnerai la parole à Jacob. Jacob, are you still there?
Yes, I am. Thanks. My question is on Joe Biden's and Catherine Tai's announcement on COVID vaccines. Was Ursula von der Leyen, was the Commission, or was anyone on the EU side informed ahead of the US announcement about this U-turn on the waiver? And if not, has this taken you by surprise? And does the Commission believe that the waiver will actually help in boosting vaccine production?
Thank you very much for your question, Jacob, which enables me to draw your attention to the fact that the President communicated this morning about this very subject in a speech that she delivered early in the morning for the European Institute in Florence, and subsequently also through various tweets which set out clearly the position where we are in relation to this important matter. First, allow me to draw your attention to the President's statement that the EU is at the forefront of deliveries of vaccines to the rest of the world. And so far, to give you concrete figures, the EU has exported about 200 million doses to the rest of the world, which means, plainly said, that we deliver as much vaccines to the rest of the world as we deliver to our citizens, because today actually also we marked the delivery of about 200 million doses of vaccines to EU citizens. So it's very clear that Europe has made a pledge and has lived by its words to be open and fair and to contribute to a great extent to the effort to vaccinate everybody in the world, not just the Europeans. Secondly, in addition to the existing exports, we are committed to ramping up the production of vaccines, because to vaccinate the world, we need to have production capacity. We have done all what we could in the European Union, and we will continue these efforts, because that's the key, as I said, to be able to produce many doses of vaccines to vaccinate the whole population. I give you an example. We work closely with vaccine manufacturers to enable them to ramp up production, and we give swift agreements to their applications to extend production capacity. We have done so with producers. I just give you a very clear example. The president visited recently the manufacturing site of BioNTech Pfizer in Poers here in Belgium. That site was indeed benefited from an extension of its production capacity, which was approved by EMA, and that site alone will be able to produce 1 billion doses of vaccines this year in 2021. And that goes for many other manufacturing sites in the EU. So we are focused and we do all we can to expand manufacturing capacity, because that's the key to producing and delivering vaccines to the world. But we are open to discuss any other effective and pragmatic solutions in order to achieve that objective. And in this context, as the President said, we are ready to assess how this latest proposal from the United States could help achieve that objective. But until then, and with immediate effect, so to say, in the short run, we are urging all countries where vaccines are being produced to allow exports rapidly, immediately, and to refrain from any measures that would affect supply chains, because that remains our immediate priority. As to the question on whether previous contacts took place or not, I'm not aware of contacts in the wake of that announcement, which was made hours ago, or let's put it this way, last night European time. That's all I could say about this in relation to your question, Jakob, but yes, you have a follow-up, so please go ahead.
Yes, so just to make sure, there was no previous warning or coordination on this move, and also considering how the pharmaceutical industry has not exactly been made this commission look great, why is the Commission President still defending these pharmaceuticals and especially their IP protections? You could also think that she might be the first, even ahead of the US, to have reasons to support this waiver.
Thank you, Jakob. Again, as I said, I wasn't aware. I am not aware of contacts between the US administration and the Commission which took place in the wake before this announcement. So I think that answers your second question. And in relation to the second question, actually, I hope that you listen carefully. I was perhaps not clear, and I'm ready to restate what I said, that the President emphasized that we are ready to discuss any solution that would enable us to increase the deliveries of vaccines worldwide and to speed up vaccinations worldwide. So we are ready to discuss any effective and open and pragmatic solution with this regards. And this, of course, includes this later proposal from the United States regarding the waiver of intellectual property rights. So we are ready to engage and to discuss that issue and many other possibly effective and pragmatic solutions. I think that Aida has a question on this matter. So Aida, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you for letting me ask the question. First of all, I would like to know when will the EU say more about the waiver of these? When will they take a final position? Because these conversations are taking place right now. And second of all, the waiver of intellectual rights has been a subject that has been mentioned several times by other countries. The position of the European Union was we don't think that the waiver of these intellectual rights will help the situation by getting more vaccine into these countries. Is that position changed now? The US has clearly changed their position.
Thank you for your question, Aida. With regards to the timing of any such discussion and engagement, so the process will be in the hands of the WTO, where such discussions will be taking place. So it's not for us here to say what the next steps are and when this will be discussed specifically, so the timeline and the process. As to the second question, I said what we have to say today, that we are focused to make all efforts possible to ramp up production, that we have exported an incredible amount, a considerable amount of vaccines so far to the rest of the world. We share the view that the world needs to vaccinate, not just Europe or the United States or any given country needs to vaccinate. So we are determined to pursue our efforts, and we are ready to discuss any pragmatic solution that would help us achieve that objective, including, of course, the proposal from the US regarding intellectual property rights. But that's all what we can say today. I see that Quentin has a question about this. Go ahead.
Hey, sorry. Yeah, it's a question maybe for Miriam. I was still wondering, like, because there was supposed to be a decision this week on whether to extend the transparency exports mechanism. Did you make an announcement on it, or did I miss this announcement maybe? Or maybe what can you say about it?
Thank you, Quentin. Miriam, on the transparency mechanism, please.
I can confirm that member states have agreed to extend the mechanisms. It will be published, the decision, to go until the end of June with the new measures that were introduced on the 24th of March, that, as you know, were exceptionally and only lasted for 6 weeks. So with this decision of member states to agree on the extension of the new measures until the end of June, they will be published in the official journal today, and they will enter into force tomorrow.
Thank you. Any additional questions for Miriam on the export mechanism? I see that Martina has her hand raised. Martina, go ahead. No longer? Okay, so Catherine, your hand is up.
Your hand is up. Yes. Hello, Dana. My first question is for Miriam. In March, you said that the current view of the European Union or the European Commission was that the problem of access to vaccines would not be resolved by waiving patent rights. I'm just wondering, maybe if you could outline maybe why you think, why that is the view that is taken. I mean, why do you think it won't produce the desired effect? And I was just wondering also about the WHO's initiative on sharing health technology through pooling of knowledge and intellectual property and data. I think it's called CTAP. And if I look at that, I see that the states that have endorsed it include at least four EU states, the Benelux countries, and I believe Portugal. Is that a preferred route? And if so, can you say how that maybe substantially differs from TRIPS waiver? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Catherine, allow me to clarify what I was trying to say about our reaction to the proposal from the US. Our position is precisely that we are ready to assess how this proposal from the US could help us achieve that objective, which is to help vaccinate the world and to have vaccines delivered to all corners of the planet. This is what I said, that we are ready to engage, discuss, and assess how this proposal can help us get there. And in the short run, we are urging all countries where vaccine production is taking place to be open, to be fair, as the EU is, and to export as much as possible to the rest of the world, because there is action to be taken immediately in the short run, and that's what we do by approving exports to the whole world. And there are also discussions to look for additional solutions that can be effective and pragmatic. Miriam.
Yes, maybe just to add on the first question that you were asking about the TRIPS waiver. I mean, what we have been saying so far is that the main problems of access to vaccines are related to insufficient capacity production, and we need to focus on ramping up production, as the President said earlier and Dana has explained. So that is our interest, to make sure that everybody has access to vaccine. And then we are ready to see other ways to get there, to get to this objective of having access to vaccines.
Including any WHO initiatives which you mentioned in your question, Catherine. So openness to assess what's the best way to go where we want to be to help the world vaccinate. I see a few hands up. I suppose it's on the same topic, so if that's the case, keep your hands up. But just to clarify, yes, that's the case. Catherine, I think you have a follow-up first. Catherine,
you said
yes.
that, yeah, sorry, can you hear me?
Now, yes, but we lost the
okay,
beginning of your question.
Okay, sorry. Right. So, Miriam, when you spoke in March about this, you said that the view was that the TRIPS waiver would not resolve this problem. So, can you just say what are the reasons why you think that it won't resolve it? I understand that you're saying that the overall aim and what you're doing is ramping up, helping to ramp up production and etc. But you didn't specifically say what the problem is maybe with the waiver. Could you maybe be explicit about what that is? And then on the other point about the COVID technology access pool, I mean, 4 EU states think that's a good idea. They're signed up to it. Is it something that the EU in its entirety could sign up to? And what are the advantages of that over a TRIPS waiver? Thanks.
Catherine, you would appreciate that we are not going to enter today into a detailed analysis of all the possible ways in which more vaccines can be shipped around the world. We are ready to assess all these possibilities. We have always said that increasing production remains our utmost priority in the short term and in the long term, because that's basically key in order to have more vaccines delivered to the world, and we have done a lot in this area, as we have said. There is no single solution which can help us get where we want. So, as I said, we are ready to consider all proposals, including, of course, the proposal made by the US side and the initiatives which have been made, which have been taken, including in the context of the WHO. Actually, I now received the information that we were indeed informed before, or that we had exchanges with the US side before the decision was announced publicly last night European time. So that clarifies the questions on whether any advance warning was given. I think that Joe has a question about this. Joe, go ahead.
Joe, go ahead. It's well, to Miriam on the export mechanism. Could we just have the updated numbers, please? How many? Oh, pardon me. How many batches and or deliveries has the Commission approved, and how many is it rejected? Still just the one to Australia. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So since the entry into force of the mechanisms until the 3rd of May, so until early this week, member states approved requests for counting from 854. And the only rejection is the one that we know. So 854 approved and 1 rejection. The total number of doses that have been authorized to export are 178 million, and these doses went to 45 destinations. In terms of details, maybe I can give, as I usually do, the top 3, and if you want to have more details, you can contact me bilaterally. So the top 3 right now are Japan with 72 million doses, United Kingdom with 18.5 million doses, and Canada with 18.4 million doses. Again, this only covers the doses under the export authorization mechanism.
Indeed, and this is why you would have heard a different number from the one that I used, because the question to Miriam was about the process of approving exports under this mechanism, and therefore it covers the period since 29th of January, while we also refer, of course, we take into account in a broader context the exports which have taken place since December. I believe that Stefan has a question on the subject too. Stefan, go ahead.
Oui, Stéphanie sur le Tagesanzeiger. Vous m'entendez?
Oui, tout va bien, vas-y.
Allô? Oui, bonjour. Oui, ça concerne le mécanisme d'exportation. Je vois que les pays de l'EE, Norvège, Islande et Liechtenstein ne sont plus soumis à ce mécanisme. Je demande juste pourquoi la Suisse reste sous le mécanisme. Est-ce que ça a à faire avec les problèmes autour de l'accord cadre ou est-ce qu'il y a une autre explication? Merci.
Oui, merci. En effet, il y a eu un petit changement du règlement en ce qui concerne l'exclusion des pays des EEE, ça veut dire la Norvège, le Liechtenstein et l'Islande, pardon. Et c'est la raison pour laquelle ces pays ont été exclus, c'est parce qu'ils sont déjà largement intégrés dans le marché unique de l'Union européenne, et aussi parce que ces pays, on fournit pas mal de vaccins de ces pays via les APAS qu'on a avec l'Union européenne, qui sont de toute façon exemptés. Et c'est la raison principale pour laquelle on a décidé que ça ne valait pas la peine de continuer à inclure ces pays. Et par contre, la situation de la Suisse et d'autres pays, c'est différent et c'est pour ça qu'ils continuent à être soumis au mécanisme d'exportation.
Merci Myriam. Donc c'est une raison objective que tu viens d'expliquer par rapport à la participation à d'autres pays que Stéphane a mentionné dans les Advanced Purchase Agreements. Donc il n'y a pas de lien avec d'autres dossiers. Je pense que Martina a une question à ce sujet. So Martina, go ahead.
I do, thank you. I'm going to try again to understand what the EU position is with regards to the patent waiver question. 2 weeks ago, the Commission President told the New York Times that she is, quote unquote, not at all a friend of patent waivers. The President of the European Council just tweeted that the EU's position is that it supports a, quote unquote, third way, referring to the Director General of the WTO's proposal for voluntary tech transfers. Can you let us know if the EU currently does have a unified position with regards to the question of patent waivers or other options? Is there a position? The Council says that it will be discussed in Porto. The President of France has said that he likes the idea of patent waivers. So that just sounds like there isn't an EU position right now. Or are you just kind of considering everything, but basically the Commission doesn't like patent waivers, which is also, I think, something we would be very interested in hearing, that that's the position the institution is taking to this ongoing discussion. So it would actually be really helpful to understand what the EU position is. If there isn't one, it would be helpful to know that too. Thank you.
Very much, Martina, for your question. This is a proposal which was issued hours ago, 12 hours ago or so, perhaps a bit longer. but we are talking about ours. The position that we can take on the podium today in relation to this has been explained several times during the course of this meeting, which is that of course we share the aim of having the world vaccinated, and we have explained a number of things which we have done to help achieve that objective. And we also said that we are ready to discuss ways to get there and solutions which are pragmatic and effective, which we can help us get there, including the proposal that was made by the US yesterday. I do not see any contradiction between that and between what other comments that you have quoted said. Of course, the EU member states and the EU leaders are going to discuss COVID vaccines, vaccination, as you said, during their next meeting in Porto. The matter of COVID-19 and effective answers is going to be discussed. So, of course, you could expect a discussion to be focused on this point too. The President of the European Council, as you have said, showed his openness towards that discussion. And this is all what we can say at this stage. We are open to discuss this and find ways to achieve our shared aim. I think this is where we're going to stay today. And I believe that Martina has a follow-up question.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but the president of your institution has clearly said she doesn't think it's a good idea. So, you know, this is an ongoing discussion. The president has personally reflected on this. It doesn't matter if the US administration changed its own position last night. This has been on the cards for months, and the president has thought about it and expressed her view on it. Further to that, it's clear that the EU doesn't have a position in this debate. The US administration does. Why can you not just clearly say, we don't know what we want to do yet. We're still talking about it. We'll figure it out. And I also want to ask something which is more sort of policy focused. Does the Commission believe that exports are the same as patent waivers and technology transfer as a policy tool? When there's scarcity of supply, permitting exports of a scarce supply is not the same as upping supply. So I'm a little confused as to why you're insisting on bringing the exports into the conversation when this is about growing supply globally. Supply right now is finite. Some people say it's because of the patents, others disagree. Surely you can be a little more specific on these options.
I'm sure you are very interested in more specific elements and details of this question and of this debate, but I can only tell you what I have said several times, which is that we're open to discuss it and that we are going to discuss it, including internally in the EU, as a next step in the following days during the meetings that the EU leaders will have in Porto. And this is all what we can say today. On the question of exports versus patents versus other solutions to produce and to deliver more vaccines, there's no silver bullet, and it's important to look at many different aspects. Export is clearly one of them, because that's the way in which vaccines which are being produced right now are being exported rapidly to those who require them. Thank you so much. Francesco.
Yeah, this is just a follow-up to what Martina just said. I mean, because it's true, you have been saying for weeks, for months, at least until yesterday, that IP waivers are not the solution, because the problem you have been saying is that there is a shortage of ingredients, right? And now, given that the United States is one of the main producers of raw materials, of ingredients for vaccines, and given that they are heavily restricting the export of ingredients and finished vaccines, when today you say that you are calling on the countries in the world that produce vaccines to export them, are you explicitly asking the US to remove restrictions that limit the export of ingredients and vaccines to the rest of the world? Thanks.
Thank you, Francesco. There is a very short answer to this. We are exhorting, we are urging all countries in the world where vaccine production is taking place to be open and to export to help the global vaccination effort. We are not targeting any country in particular. We are exhorting all of them to show openness and to prefer that solution. I believe that there were 3 more questions about this, after which we can go back to Simona because she has a question on something completely different. So, Nicolas.
Oui, bonjour. J'avais une petite question sur ces vaccins. En fait, vous suivez clairement Biden, quoi, si j'ai bien compris. Si le président américain n'avait rien fait, on n'aurait pas posé la question et tu aurais répété que l'Union européenne n'est pas vraiment pour parce que c'est pas vraiment la question adaptée. Donc c'était le premier point. Le deuxième point, vous avez sorti récemment une position à défendre au nom de l'Union européenne à l'Assemblée générale de l'OMS. Je pense que c'est tout récent, ça date du 3 mai, si j'ai bien vu. Il n'y a rien sur cet aspect-là. Donc comment ça se fait qu'il y a 3 jours, vous mettiez rien et aujourd'hui, tout d'un coup, vous étudiez. En fait, vous êtes très embêté, quoi.
Merci beaucoup, Nicolas. Je peux répéter en français ce que j'ai essayé de dire à plusieurs reprises en anglais. Je pense que ça, c'est l'alarme incendie qui se déclenche à 1h les jeudis. Et effectivement, pour cela, nous sommes embêtés. Pour cette alarme incendie, à prendre une petite pause. Voilà, l'alarme incendie s'est arrêtée. Donc, Nicolas, j'étais en train de dire que peut-être qu'en français, je vais être plus claire ou plus convaincante. Nous sommes en train d'évaluer, ou nous sommes prêts à évaluer et à discuter de cette proposition qui a été faite hier soir sur la propriété intellectuelle en relation avec les vaccins. Point. C'est la chose que nous avons à dire aujourd'hui. Nous avons également précisé qu'il y aura bien évidemment une discussion à l'intérieur de l'Union européenne, d'abord, et ensuite, il y aura des discussions au niveau de l'agence du OMC, Organisation mondiale du commerce, dans lesquelles nous allons participer. Mais c'est tout ce que nous avons à dire à ce sujet aujourd'hui, ouverture et évaluation de cette option, comme d'autres options qui pourraient nous permettre à aider à vacciner le monde. Je pense que Jacob a encore une question à ce sujet. Ah, pardon. D'abord, Nicolas, il a une question de suivi. Vas-y, Nicolas.
Oui, juste pour savoir, donc, est-ce que vous allez revoir la position que vous comptiez défendre à l'OMS et que vous avez mis sur la table de l'Union européenne, du Conseil de l'Union européenne, puisqu'il n'y a pas cette proposition-là, et puisque ce que tu dis aujourd'hui, c'est qu'effectivement, depuis hier soir, la position a changé. Donc, est-ce que vous allez réécrire cette proposition qui doit être mise en débat à l'OMS? Parce que si l'Union européenne vient de changer d'avis, ce serait peut-être bien de le mettre par écrit, non?
Nicolas, je ne pense pas que je te fais part d'un changement d'avis de l'Union européenne sur quoi que ce soit. Je te dis que nous sommes ouverts à discuter de cette question-là qui était mise sur la table hier soir. Donc nous sommes ouverts à discuter et à évaluer comment cette option pourrait nous amener à l'état d'avoir plus de vaccins pour le monde entier. Et c'est tout ce qu'on a à dire là-dessus. Je pense qu'il y a encore 2 questions à ce sujet. D'abord, Jacob.
Oui, merci. Si j'ai bien compris, en fait, la Commission avait été informée, la présidente de la Commission savait que les États-Unis allaient faire cette annonce, et donc c'est une décision qui a été prise en amont de cette annonce publique de ne pas rejoindre les États-Unis. On est clair là-dessus. Vous n'avez pas été pris par surprise. La Commission a décidé qu'elle n'allait pas rejoindre l'équipe Biden et dire qu'elle est en faveur de cette nouvelle proposition pour la propriété intellectuelle.
Je ne t'inviterai pas à aller beaucoup plus loin dans l'analyse de cela. La question simple qui a été posée était est-ce que nous avons su à l'avance que les États-Unis allaient faire une annonce à ces sujets? L'information est tombée lors de cette réunion, pendant cette réunion, et donc effectivement on a su peu avant l'annonce de cette décision que l'annonce allait être faite. Mais c'est tout ce que j'ai à dire là-dessus, c'est toutes les informations que je suis en mesure de te fournir aujourd'hui. Et maintenant, on enchaîne avec David, qui sera, je pense, le dernier collègue à poser une question à ce sujet aujourd'hui.
Oui, merci Dana. Un follow-up à la question de Martina. La présidente a dit clairement, il y a 2 semaines, I'm not at all a friend of releasing patents. La question est, est-ce que cette phrase est encore valide aujourd'hui ou pas? Et si, je veux dire, c'est un oui ou non, on peut changer d'avis dans la vie. Deuxième question, en fait, la proposition, ce n'est pas la proposition des États-Unis. La proposition, elle est ancienne. Elle a été présentée par l'Afrique du Sud et l'Inde à l'OMC. Donc, ce n'est pas une nouvelle proposition. C'est pour cela qu'on se demande comment c'est possible que ce matin, dans ses déclarations, dans son discours à l'Institut universitaire européen, la présidente a changé en quelque sorte de ton. Parce qu'elle a dit on est prêt à discuter cette proposition. Jusqu'à hier, l'Union européenne n'était pas prête à discuter cette proposition. Qu'est-ce qui a changé sur le thème de ce point de vue? Vu que jusqu'à maintenant, la solution qui était défendue à l'OMC par l'Union européenne, c'était juste de la collaboration entre privé et public sur le partage de licences, etc., pour augmenter la production. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, David. Je crains que je n'aurai pas beaucoup de choses à ajouter par rapport à ce que j'ai dit. Tu m'as demandé sur, disons, la position de la présidente là-dessus aujourd'hui et par rapport à il y a quelques semaines. Je peux te dire clairement, elle l'a dit, elle-même, de vive voix dans son speech, ainsi que par écrit dans ses tweets, qu'elle évalue et qu'elle est ouverte à discuter cette option qui était présentée hier soir, ainsi que d'autres options et solutions qui pourraient être pragmatiques et efficaces. C'est là qu'on est, que nous sommes. Les discussions auront lieu là-dessus et il faut voir ce que ça implique et où les discussions mènent. Mais c'est tout ce que nous avons à dire aujourd'hui à ces sujets et à ces développements. Maintenant, on va passer rapidement à la dernière question. David a un follow-up, donc je te donnerai la parole pour ça avant de voir si Simona, qui voulait poser une question il y a très longtemps sur un autre sujet, est toujours connectée. David, vas-y.
Oui, je voulais juste savoir si la phrase d'il y a 2 semaines est encore valide, si on peut l'écrire comme ça ou pas.
Est-ce que tu peux répéter? Je n'ai pas compris le sens de la question.
Then I'm wondering if the sentence that von der Leyen gave to Martina 2 weeks ago, she is not a friend of a patent waiver, it's still valid or not. That's the point. Can I write in my story that the position of Ursula von der Leyen is that one? Quoting the New York Times, of course.
Merci beaucoup, David. C'est à toi de voir qui tu cites et à quel moment et comment tu puises dans les passés ou dans des interviews qui ont été données dans les dernières semaines ou par d'autres personnages. C'est à toi de faire ta sélection et de déterminer ta ligne. Ce qui en est aujourd'hui pour la position de la présidente à ce sujet, je le dis clairement, we assess and we are ready to discuss this option and other options which could be effective and pragmatic solutions. And that's what we have to say today. Now, I would rapidly try to give the floor to Simona if she's still connected. she had a question about the rule of law, and that will be the last question that we are taking today, because I'm awfully sorry, we're awfully late for the press conference of Commissioner Kyriakides, who's unfortunately waiting. So is Simona still connected? That doesn't seem to be the case, so we will get back to her bilaterally with apologies. And now I will wish you a very good press conference with Commissioner Kyriakides, and I will also wish you a very good afternoon afterwards. Thank you.